Our next session is Using Space to Enhance National Security, moderated by Mesut Chicheka, Director of Lockheed Martin Space.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. We have distinguished speakers in this panel, and I'd like to introduce them to you and few words about their backgrounds and experience. They have very impressive experiences in the field, more than 20 years, and but I will be brief to touch base those. Well, let's start with our lady panelist, Miss Tina Gatteore. Tina is she received the bachelor honors degree aerospace engineering from Kingston University in UK. Also, she completed the program in the International Space University. She started her career at the Boeing company's satellite systems business unit. She was integral to the building and launch of Connexion by Boeing business, the first of its kind true broadband communication services for the commercial airlines. And then she took some roles in the Panasonic Avionics Corporation, and then she worked with Yahsat, a UAE, established UAE satellite operator. Also, she worked with ESA a number of years, who is another panelist in our panel. Tina currently is the president of Mynaric USA, where she leads the efforts to position Mynaric as the preferred laser communication provider for aerospace application for both government and commercial markets. And also, I'd like to mention a few words about her role in the Yahsat. She was the Executive Vice President of In-Flight Connectivity Solutions at Yahsat, a leading UAE satellite operator whom I'm sure you know best. Well, our second panelist is from Airbus, Mr. Gregory Patterson. He is Regional Sales Director for Airbus Defense and Space in the space line of business. He is graduated from Rennes Business School in France and holds a Master in International Business with a major in Business Ethics from the University of Leicester, UK. Greg has worked in the aerospace domain for the past 20 years. Initially was on aircraft and defense programs, and during the past 12 years, he has been involved with the sales activities and business development activities, and he knows well the environment. He resides and works out of Abu Dhabi office, so he is one of the regional guys that who knows the environment well. And Isa, Mr. Isa Al-Shamsi. Isa is by trade, he's electrical and electronics engineer, and also he has a master's degree from the very reputable institution called INSEAD from France. Well, also he got some trainings at the most challenging institute from UAE Armed Forces Signal Corps. And also he participated very much in the manufacturing and the procurement phase, procurement and manufacturing for Aliyah 4 and 2 spacecraft in Toulouse, France. Isa, right now, he is the Deputy General Manager of Yahsat Government Solutions. He's responsible for delivering Yahsat Government Solutions projects and certifying the design of the Yahsat military network. He's also responsible for all technical aspects and leads the department's technical strategy to support growth in line with the Yahsat Government Solutions missions and objectives. Well, after this introductory session, I want to jump and want to ask my first question. Well, this will be a general question and you're free to answer whichever domain that you would like to answer, just to warm up our session. What space means to you? How do you see space as an enabler? Very brief, please. 20, 30 seconds comments. Tina?
Thank you, Masood. Thank you, my colleagues. It's a pleasure to be on this panel with you all. As you mentioned, Isa and I have been together at Yasat, and I wish we were all together in person in Abu Dhabi, but here we are virtually together. Space as enabler to me personally has meant all things related to communications, the facilitation of communication, whether we're mobile or fixed, whether we're using it for personal use, for business use, for national security use. I think space has always been an enabler through various satellites that have been launched over the years, right from the onset when the first one was ever launched. So I think space is great to dream about, but it's also a key enabler in our everyday lives, both commercially, government, national security, and it just is a key part of all aspects of our lives.
Thank you, Tina. Greg, what do you think about that?
Yeah, thanks, Masood, and also good morning or good afternoon or good evening from my side. As virtual, we are global. It's a funny question because I got asked the other day on what would a day without satellite look like. So I think we can concur there, and I actually think that we would not achieve much today without satellites. They have become so crucial in our technology-enabled everyday life that we are using them all the time without even noticing. And in the security domain, now in the 21st century, all our military operations are also depending on space for communications, for navigation, for reconnaissance. And also us, we are depending on navigation system, on applications, our smartphone, we are depending on internet. So as citizens, we interact probably on average, I think it's with 10 satellites each day. So definitely a great and a big enabler for our lives. And also space is unique, and unique in that sense that it depends on other domains less than these other domains depend on space. So for me, space is a really great and a key enabler for all our systems.
Thank you. Isa, we would like to hear your remarks, please.
Thank you, Masood. Thank you, everyone. Just to start first, it's a pleasure and honor for me to be with you in this session, guys. Let me address this question from the national security point of view, or the nations. The space domain is a very strategic enabler for nation, as well as a distinct warfighting domain, demanding changes in worldwide policies, strategies, operation, investments, capabilities. Space is a central part of the nation's critical infrastructure and is one of the nation's strategic assets. In the UAE, our leadership has acknowledged this importance of the space to our nation's prosperity, scientific achievements, and national securities. Ensuring the availability of those capabilities, Masood, is fundamental to establish and maintain national security, as well as a defense sector superiority across all domains. The recent Yasat investment in the Thuraya Next Gen is a testament for this, Masood.
Thank you. Thank you for you to stating that, Isa. Well, my next question is, what is the current trend for space platforms when addressing national security? How do you think, how do you envisage the next generation of space platforms to be used in enhancing the national security of the nations? Well, I'd like to start this with Greg, please, and then I will ask also what Tina and Isa are thinking about that.
Thanks, Mr. Well, decisions made in border security and national defense are of utmost importance for safety and security of countries and citizens. And space tools such as Earth observation and telecommunication satellites are nowadays vital for decision making, as well as to empower the forces of the nations. And space technologies are consistently evolving, as well as platforms, and several major evolutions are currently at stake in the space domain to improve this national security and to answer the evolving user needs. If we look into the Earth observation domain, so the intelligence domain, resolution remains a key element to allow the detection, the recognition, and even the identification of a threat and to recover value-added intelligence of this. And demand is increasing in precision to extremely high resolution now. Another factor is agility that is evolving, and it is capacity that is needed on satellites in order to ensure a rapid assessment of a situation and also an accurate follow-on of a border or of an infrastructure for our national security. And the third one for Earth observation would be the capacity of revisit. It's also a key parameter to design the perfect coverage of a country on the frequency of visibility for a specific area. On both this capacity of revisit and this agility are key features of new systems, which are the satellite constellations, which are specifically fitted to support this high revisit needs, this ability to cover a dedicated area several times a day, so seeing the same scene several times a day. And they are able to combine also optical and radar satellite to have a 24/7 full coverage of the areas of interest. All these features and capabilities are embedded now in our latest technologies, in our latest satellites. For example, Airbus is about to launch the first set of so-called Pléiades Neo satellites, which is our self-funded optical constellation designed for dual use, and which is proposing very high resolution imagery, intraday revisits, and also equipped with optical communication, as well as cloud platform and artificial intelligence tools. In the second big domain, which is telecommunication satellites on secure communications, maintaining the link with the forces in a secured way and providing them real-time information is really key to national security. And today, users are asking for security, connectivity, and also reliability. And as a feature of their telecom system, they want a high throughput capacity, high utilization flexibility, in-orbit threat resilience, ground threat resilience, meaning that they want resistance to cyber attacks, anti-jamming capability, secure telemetry, tracking, and command. I mean, my fellow partners of the panel know this better than I do, probably being operators and involved in all this governmental communication. And for this, optical communication can answer these needs, bringing anti-jamming capability, as I mentioned, robustness, discretion, higher throughput for a huge transfer data rate, and so on. And for this, we have different solutions. For example, the Space Data Highway service that has been developed by Airbus also, which represents an order of magnitude change in the speed of space communication. And our telecommunication customers are also investing in these future systems and platforms. For example, the recent order by Arabsat of the Badr 8 satellite, which embarks an optical communication payload. The selection of Airbus by Yasat, what better panel than this one to thank Yasat again for this selection to build Thuraya 4 NGS, which is the United Arab Emirates next generation L-band telecommunication satellite. And also another example would be the order by Optus of a fully reconfigurable telecommunication satellite. The global trend for this next generation, I think, is more data, better data in shorter time. And for this, we also have to integrate artificial intelligence into all the systems as it is revolutionizing the exploitation of this huge amount of data and enabling the extraction of additional information, opening the range of possibilities for usage in the future.
Thank you, Greg. Tina, we would like to hear your complimentary remarks on this question, please.
Thank you. I'll echo and reiterate briefly what Gregory just said. He touched on a couple of things that were very key across why national security needs, the space assets. So if you look at it from that perspective, he touched on security, high throughput of data, secure linked, I talked about optical laser communications. So I'm rather biased. I come from a company that provides those. So my NARIC over a decade has been perfecting this technology, and we've seen a huge demand from the various governments around the world. And I can speak for what's happening here in the US. We're all familiar with the establishment of the Space Force and what the Space Development Agency has recently announced in terms of their strategy across providing communication surveillance needs for all different branches of government. And you're looking at agencies going from what was traditionally geo satellite usage to more LEO usage. The SDA has publicly announced their strategy across a transport layer where they have a number of satellites in low Earth orbit. They've got custody layers, and they're really building up on this. And we're a party to delivering technologies to all that are looking for laser communications for their needs. What's very interesting is that governments are looking to tap into not only their exclusive low Earth orbit or geo constellations, but actually tapping into what are traditional LEO commercial constellations. So that speaks to your duality question, is while government were exclusively developing their own perhaps a decade or so ago, now they're relying more and more on being able to have systems that are quite interoperable. So we are being asked as a technology provider for laser communications to make our laser technology interoperable with our competitors' technology, which we're working towards establishing some standardization. Because if you look at the end customer, whether it's the UAE Armed Forces or it's the US Forces, Global Defense Forces, they are looking to utilize assets in various orbits to make sure that data can be moved around where required by their forces on the ground, in the air. So having this interconnected network is very key. As I mentioned, and having the enabling technologies is also key, and those are really along the ability to bring the satellites closer to Earth with the lower Earth orbit satellites, providing technologies on them, which are the laser type technologies, to move the data between them in a highly secure manner so that it can't be jammed. Some various RF systems are susceptible to that. Laser isn't. Like I said, Greg touched on a lot of those points. I echo them, and I see a lot of adoption in these specific technologies. They might be subsystems of a larger spacecraft, but now are being called out as a key enablers for mission needs of the various forces.
Thank you, Tina. Now, we gave the stage microphone to two manufacturers. Now, let's see how the operator sees this. Isa, please go ahead.
So thank you, Masood. I think Greg and Tina, they captured most of the point, but let's take the next generation of space platform and the capabilities they enable. They play an important role in increasing national securities. Let me address it, and this is what Greg did. He defined them to domains, and we'll do the same. We have the domain of space situational awareness systems, where we have various technologies there. If we're going to look at it from optical point of view, early warning, SARS, against other military applications. And then we have the second category, which is the secure communication satellite system, which I will try to focus on in a minute. But this can be the secure communication that can be trusted by a national security. And the satellite communication has always been at the forefront of secure communication. I believe that the next generation space platform will enhance this aspect further with more interference kinds of mitigation and security at both communication security and transmission security, which we know it as ComSec and Transec. And then there is a different category which we haven't touched on, which is the satellite navigation systems, enabling a secure location services independent from the navigation foreign services that are available. So if we go back and try to focus on the secure communication, the satellite communication system has been always the go-to media of communication for national securities for decades, due to its security's resilience and dependencies on the ground infrastructure. Some capabilities worth mentioning in the secure comms that are very crucial for our main customers, which are, for example, beyond line of sight communication systems that enable land, sea, airborne platforms. We have the tracking and situational awareness satellite systems. We have the border protection and surveillance systems. So yes, it is very crucial, and I believe the next generation will tackle most of those. Masoud.
Thank you, Isa. As a complementary question to this, now we also are seeing high throughput satellites and programmable software-defined payloads and electronically steerable arrays, antennas. Can you please, I want to start with you, Isa, and then we'll ask Tina and Greg to comment if they have any. How do you see this software-defined satellites and electronically steerable arrays? How is going to play? What is their role going to be? Are they going to give us better usage out of the space segment hardware?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Let's look at it from, shall I say, end user point of view. Today, we have certain technology that can give you certain throughputs and certain coverage, and we always been seeing this. A new technology or new platforms that comes in the market which are throughput hungry and require various kind of flexibilities when it comes to coverage areas and various things. And definitely, yes, electronic steering capabilities will provide those kind of will fulfill the needs, and I think it will fulfill this hunger that was created out of those new technology that are provided recently in the market.
Tina, what do you say about that?
I agree with Isa. I think in having worked closely in an organization with Isa, we were always looking for technologies that are for the future, that enable mobility communications. And some of those enablers are, of course, the high throughput. But on the receive side, you've got to have the steerable, the electronical steerable antennas, etc., and making them smaller, because mobility platforms don't need to just be aircraft and UAVs. You know, there can be vehicles and backpacks. People are moving, and so being able to receive and transmit data in a very secure way using all different mobility platforms is key, and satellite is one node of that platform. So again, high throughput communications, a method of communication, be it secure RF or laser communications, is very key. And it's really the application Isa mentioned beyond line of sight. He talked about different theater, whether it's in on land, in the air, in his previous answer. But I think it's very key. Some of those, as you talked about, being able to change your mission, whether it's surveillance or comm, and being able to change it with an asset already deployed in space is always desirable by the end customer. And I think the technologies exist today to make that happen.
Thank you, Tina. And Greg, we know that Airbus is a very reputable, very well-established and very capable contractor, manufacturer since a number of decades. And we know that also your company designed and marketed this type of platforms, digital and with the software-defined payloads. What would you like to say for that from the Airbus angle?
Well, a lot have been said, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to add a remark on this. as a manufacturer, and you said it, we strongly believe and support this reconfigurability in orbit of our telecommunication satellites. We have launched a massive initiative in this direction, and a full range of products, so-called OneSat products, which are telecommunication reconfigurable in orbit on-demand satellites. So I think that's a huge opportunity that maturity of technologies is enabling us today, and we strongly believe that there is a lot of users, there is a lot of demand out there, and we want to tackle this and to offer this product to our users and our partners.
Thank you, Greg. I think our customers are looking for more capable systems, and thank you for contributing to that. Thank you very much. Well, my third question is, I'd like to direct this to Isa, please. Isa, where do you see the biggest area of space technology growth for national security? I mean, over the next 5 years, remote sensing, secure and protected communications, on payloads, cybersecurity. Can you say your thoughts on in any order that you would like to say?
Sure, Masood. Thank you for this question. It's going to be a bit tougher question, especially with the choices that I have, since I believe investments and growth will happen in improving all the mentioned technologies. But let me try to list them in order. I think nations and technology companies will continue to invest in the #1 needs for national securities, which has been the go-to means for military and law enforcement for decades, the secure, protected communication. I might be biased here, but I believe that this capabilities is essential and will continue to grow. Maybe this view is from market volume point of view. However, if we speak from year to year growth perspectives, we might have better contender, since the communications is already mature and has a large share of the space technology business. I should mention the importance and the growth of the remote sensing technologies for space situational awareness and advanced satellites early warning systems. In addition, we will also witness, this is again something that I see, a growth in sovereign satellites navigation payloads and systems that will allow to have independence from the navigation foreign systems.
Thank you, Isa. And very quickly, I'd like to hear Tina's and Greg's priority list over the areas that we indicated, like remote sensing will take more demands or orders for manufacturers, secure protected communications, software-defined payloads, cybersecurity. What is your priority order, Tina?
Masood, thank you. And again, I'm also rather biased here, because all of the above sounds great to me, because it's going to require a lot of movement of large quantities of data. Surveillance is capturing a lot of data. Communication needs to move that data securely, is going to require what Isa was just mentioning, secure communications. And one of the key enabling technologies there, whether from Mynaric or from Airbus, is really around the optical laser communications in space assets, but we also serve the air market as well. So whether it's UAVs that we install our equipment on, or fighter planes, other types of jets, balloons, etc. This type of technology is critical for the mission needs Isa identified. And we see that, I know he has a much closer touch point here in the UAE, but in the United States, the SDA calls those technologies out specifically. You all would have read recently in the press of the large contracts awarded to your company, Lockheed Martin, and also a new entrant, York Space Systems, with respect to the transport layer of communications with the SDA, a lower Earth orbit constellation. And what they've done there is they've provided a duality in terms of a two-path approach, two separate companies, but the same mission profile, and are requiring use of this technologies that you've mentioned for their mission needs. Again, high throughput, secure, and they've specifically called out the use of optical inter-satellite links. So again, a biased view, but it is the underpinning of many of the missions that are required by various national security needs.
Greg, may I have your comments, please?
Yeah, hard to complement on this, and also biased, being present in all this domain of activity. I think that they are all very important, and we wish that they will bring all the additional features to all of our users. There is one key point that I don't know if you want to address it now or later, Mesut, is regarding the protection of this national space assets in orbit, because
yes,
the demand
I
is
have
growing,
a separate question on that, Greg.
Yes. Okay, because demand is growing and assets are growing, so we need to ensure
Sure.
so that they are all well protected.
We'll come back to that, and we would like to hear your opinion on that. Well, I think we are going not bad for the time used. I have a number of questions more. Maybe we can pick up the pace, and I ask your support and help, please, to make shorter but to the point remarks, please. Okay, my next question is, I'd like to ask Tina. Do you think space-based national systems will be dedicated to security missions, or they will be dual systems? In addition, they will support the civil applications? And also, I want to hear from you, what areas do you see the convergence and divergence between national security demands and the commercial demands? Please.
Thank you, Mesut. I'll give it from the US context here. When you look at the investments that various agencies are making in their own assets, they're really developed for national security purposes. What's also interesting is there's a growing trend amongst the various agencies in the US to adopt use of commercial systems. So it's not provide US national constellations, communication constellation surveillance, providing civil, although they could support that. It's the other way around. It's their use of commercial constellations, and it's very well known. They've been using that today, whether it's an Iridium constellation or an Inmarsat constellation for comms needs. But going forward into the future, you'll see some of the larger constellations, like the SpaceX Starlink constellation, being utilized for various government missions, or the planned Telesat constellation is being looked at to address some of those needs. If you step back from a navigational perspective, you know that the GPS system was developed for the national security needs from a navigation standpoint, but you and I and everybody relies on that asset for our day-to-day lives. So I think in the future, I see some dual use, but I really look at it that the government assets are going to tap into the commercial assets more and more. They're adapting their procurement policies to really open the door for innovative use of technologies as well from non-traditional players in the aerospace industry. Startups, the new space startups are making a real big play in defense security, which would have been unheard of a decade ago. I hope that answers the question.
Yes. Well, that's interesting that you gave the GPS for navigation example. I remember, I mean, you guys are a lot younger than me. I remember when I went to a city that I didn't know, the first thing that I was doing to buy a city map to drive, and to study like 5-10 minutes or mark on the map where I want to go. How can I drive? Right now, we have wonderful systems. almost every car comes with the navigator system in it, and we are spoiled. This kind of developments makes us kind of lazy in a way. So, but I'm glad that you didn't have to go through that difficulties. Well, I have a number of questions. I will ask Isa and Greg, if you have some comments to make, please do. If you don't, I'll switch to the next question.
It's a small comment. I mean, from my point of view, Masoud, I think it depends on the application itself. In the majority of the application, I see more convergence to support the investment and a close of the business case itself. But as long as the system can be fully segregated and secure, I believe nation will opt for dual system to monetize their investment. Let's take a quick example here. In communications, you can have a military and a commercial payloads in one spacecraft, fully segregated, and they have a separate ground segment fully dedicated for each use. So it always depends on the application itself.
That is true. Greg?
Yeah, I was joining Asa on this comment, actually. Dual use, of course, of an overall asset, but also dual use of the asset itself by design, let's say, as you can segregate, for example, on a telecommunication satellite, a military part with a commercial part. And then you have also different ground segments in order to operate that. So a lot of dual use to be done. And also, I think for governments, they are giving or taking the opportunity to benefit from these new space initiatives also. So they can always tap into this commercial new approach on this commercial initiative. So that's why we need to keep it open and keep it like this kind of dual use and dual accessibility for this system.
Correct. Next question. I want to have each of your comments, very quick response, please. How do you see regional or broader partnership affecting architectural options as space is more widely utilized for national security? Will the focus be on sovereignty and solely owned systems, national systems, or more collaborative systems between the nations? How do you see that? Will we see more international partnership in this domain because to help to fund these projects? Because you know, a good size of money needs to be invested. Well, Tina, you want to say?
I, as an observer and as a supplier of technology, I would say, yes, I could see some sharing of assets and communications. National sovereignty is just that, national sovereignty. I think there's always going to be some very closed protectionist sort of approach. But at the same time, as you know, friendly nations come together, there's always sharing of data across assets. And I think if we can provide the enabling technologies that permit the transmission of data, imagery, comms data across these space assets, that will always reinforce how various friendly nations can work together in keeping us all safe.
Thank you. Greg?
Yeah, shortly, I think it's really depending on the domain in space. It's hard to generalize whether it is a partnership or not. I think space is by definition an arena for partnership, and we would not have achieved so much in space if it would not have bring us all together in big project. Look at the International Space Station. That's a very good example of worldwide cooperation on how we can bring science to the next level. So certainly in these domains, a lot of cooperation and partnerships, and this will not stop. But if we refer to the session we are in, national security, national space assets, maybe here, a little bit less partnership or international partnership there.
Thank you, Greg. Isa?
Yeah, so it's exactly what Greg mentioned. I believe sovereignty will always be the focus when it comes to high sensitive national security. However, I expect a trade-off on investment and criticality of the mission will also be encouraged, and it will push towards collaborative kind of systems.
Thank you. And I think also through the European Union or ESA, we see more kind of collaboration in this domain between the European countries compared to the other part of the globe. That's like, for example, France and Italy are showing a great partnership in certain national space assets. Well, let me select, because I have to select some of the questions in order to be compliant with the time restrictions. Well, this summit is organized by UAE, and I want to ask my last question for UAE's interest. Greg, as the Airbus is playing a big role in UAE's space, forward-going space programs, what would you like to say? What would be your Airbus message to UAE, to your customers and UAE members?
Well, space is a key enabler for our national securities, and we need to ensure that we have the complete security of all the space assets. Airbus, as a partner to all national security programs, is there to answer and address these worries on this request from the users. If we take even a larger perspective, there is that I think it is essential to know what is happening in space when it comes to national security, and to understand the events that might conceal hostile acts, or to respond to natural phenomena or simple malfunction in space, and to track and mitigate all the debris we are there. We haven't touched this, but I think this is also something that we ought to look at. And for all the space community, I think it's very important that we all continue to reinforce this means to mitigate all this risk, to deal with the debris, to deal with the space traffic management, and to enforce and improve situational awareness of space. So that would be the message I have when it comes to space assets and national security in the UAE, and for all the space actors and the nation with the power in space.
Thank you, Greg. That's a very important point. Yes, especially in low Earth orbit, we have this concern, and I always think that we have to protect space. As human beings, we kind of did not use the Earth properly, and we realized this very late. Now we are taking the actions, and hopefully we won't see this happening in space. Tina and Isa, very short, 10, 15 seconds comments before I wrap up, please.
Well,
Tina.
Thank you, Masood. I think your question was regarding the UAE perspective. I think the regional presence, UAE, I know, observing and having lived there for a short time, has made significant investments in that area. I continue to see those investments being made, and both Greg and myself come from companies that provide the technologies, and so friendly nations are always good to do business with, and so we're always there to help in helping meet the mission needs of the UAE.
Thank you, Tina. And Greg, what you're doing for UAE and for the global needs. Isa, as the UAE citizen, I'd like to have your final remarks, please.
It's just, I will repeat a statement that I made in the opening, Masood. Here in the UAE, thanks to our leadership, they acknowledge the importance of the space to our nation prosperity, scientific achievements, and the national security. And this is where you see the amount of investment and dedication towards this sector has been rapidly growing. I mean, in the last few years. And hearing from Greg and Tina, it was very appreciated. But wanted to hear from you, Masood, as a Lockheed Martin representative and a solution provider as well. What is your message here? I mean, towards this. I mean, I know you guys, you've been closely interacting with the different parties within and bodies within the UAE that represent the space sector itself. But I'm sure there are lots of plans and amazing kind of things coming ahead.
Yes, thank you, Isa, for asking that. As Lockheed also, we are working internally how we can better respond to be compliant with the requirements, specifications, with the schedule requirements and the performance. Everyday performance requirements are getting more and more from the end users. So I think we are looking for towards to take part in a partnership role in other big companies, big space companies, big primes. We are open to international collaboration to give the best to the end users. Unfortunately, there is no time to speak more on this, so we have to be respectful with the time limits. I think we reached to the end of our panel. I want to thank you, each of you, for your very good professional contributions. We learned more from your angle. Thank you, Tina, Greg, Isa, and I wish you safe and healthy days ahead. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.